Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Productivity Academy live broadcast. Got the Q&A going here every week. Every week Wednesday at 10 a.m. So going to give people a minute here. I know some people have asked some questions. If you are watching this later, you can click on the link above in case you're not able to make it. Ask your questions, and then I check those out ahead of time, and I'll go through them, and you can either watch them here or on the Productivity Academy YouTube channel. And feel free to join live if you got questions while I'm talking. You can just ask them, and I can watch them on the screen and check them out. So, realize I'm gonna go kind of crazy looking around and trying to figure out everything, but I promise over time it's gonna get better. So real quick, one thing that I know I've talked about before, but something I've mentioned is this book, Deep Work. So I came across Cal Newport originally through a podcast called The Tropical MBA, which I really like. And there's going to be a post up on productivity.academy, the website, later today or probably tomorrow with a short review of the book and kind of my thoughts on it and how I could apply it. I thought it was good enough. I really wanted to share that with everybody so that if you kind of read through that, you can see if this is something you might want to take the time to read. Highly suggest you do. It's only, let me see, it's about 250 pages, and then it's really good. Basically, it not only explains why being able to perform extended periods of distraction-free work is important, and why and how that's becoming more important, but you also get real-world tactics for putting this into action. Okay, so it's kind of nice. So it's not just like the theoretical, ooh, it's important to, be able to really dive into stuff, but also goes into, okay, this is how you can make this happen. And Cal Newport's a professor, and so he has a profession and a job and a schedule that is very different from a lot of people. And he's cognizant of that fact and talks about, there's many different ways you can set this up so that it works for you. And it's interesting, if you haven't or you're not familiar with this, I just want to read what his description of deep work is. And he calls it professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. Okay? So kind of a good definition, and there's a lot that encompasses. But like I said, in the opening chapters of the book, he dives into what deep work is and why it's important and why you should be interested in it. And I completely agree with that. And then goes into some of the practical aspects of how you can really apply this to your life. So in the intro of this, why it's so important, I'm not going to cover all of his reasons. I think it's pretty cool. But he talks about how distractions are becoming more and more prevalent, all right? Because in our lives, we've always got, and I use distractions loosely, I just mean it's a distraction that takes you away from whatever you're trying to do. So things like, a phone call or relationships or, just anything like that. And it's not a negative, a relationship isn't a bad thing, but, you've got to deal with these outside people, whether it's your boss or your family, those are things that may take your time away from what you're trying to focus on. And then, so those are around all the time, but now the technological aspects of this are growing, okay? Facebook, Twitter, cell phones, different ways of being reached, alerts, all this stuff, okay? And so it's being harder and harder to pull out from that. And I really identify with that. I've noticed my attention span getting shorter, and then the times that I do say okay, I've got 2 hours, I'm going to really, get this done, whatever that task is, and I go into it, and then I find myself 45 minutes later, unconsciously, just I'll just click on email, oh my God, what am I doing? I didn't even have any email I needed to check, and I find myself doing that. And so this has been a really good reminder that hey, I need to take a step back and be better at being focused, which really that's kind of the second part of this, is it takes practice. You can't just turn it on. A lot of people, and myself included, think, okay, well, I'll just get the time to focus and that's it, I'll be good to go. I know how to focus, right? Of course. And then you try it and you realize, wow, this is really difficult. So anyways, there's a lot more to the book than that. But I suggest you do that, and again, I'll probably come back and pop the link in here to the review I wrote about it, or just kind of the summary, and you can figure out if that's going to be something good for you. So let's see, Justin has commented here, have you checked the Carl Paline on YouTube? Cool, he's been helping a lot. No, I'll check that out. I don't. not familiar with them, so I'll definitely check that out. Thanks, man. And let's see, Just says, my biggest distractions are relationships and related to my social needs mixed in with not being able to deal with being lonely without that human interaction. Yeah, that's tough. Well, it's tough and good. I mean, hey, you're normal. Congratulations, you like being around people, so that's good. I think this ties into this idea because I was going to say, like, I'm literally reading off of what I wrote earlier today. But for myself, I want to be able to contribute more meaningfully. I also want to have more time that I'm in control of for both work and play. To be honest, I want to be super productive so that I can spend more time outside and reading. I love to travel with my fiance, and I look forward to doing even more of that in the future. So I better figure out a way to improve my working time so that I can do this. And to me, that's kind of the same idea with what you're talking about, at least the second half of that. You want to take things up a notch so that you can, enjoy these social interactions without feeling like you're maybe slacking on your work or you're not achieving what you could be. So part of it is just identifying and being okay with that. Like, you need social interactions. If you're skipping out of work or you're leaving work and you're like, okay, I didn't do that one thing, but I'll just ignore it and go do something. Okay, maybe then you need to take a look at, like, okay, how can I organize my systems to better cope with this, so that I can then leave work or leave it behind and say, okay, now I'm going to go do this other thing, which is really important to my life, which is having that social interaction. And then distractions in relationships, I mean, that's a really broad one too. I know I just mentioned it earlier, but that depends what it is. Is it you get wrapped up, with somebody you're dating, or is it literally, you're working at home or in the office and people are distracting you? So there's kind of different ways to deal with that. And a lot of that can be helping people realize that your time is really important for the following reason. If you are able to focus, and you've got to stick to this. So if this is the other side, your time is really important and you're able to focus, then you're going to be able to focus more attention on them after you complete whatever it is you're working on. And so, like I said, the flip side of that is you then have to be better about, like, being present. When you're done working, you're done. And so part of this book kind of addresses that too. So, I mean, can't recommend it enough. Really enjoyed it. It did take me a couple weeks to get through, but I think it's really worth it. Let's see. Justin said, really the dating aspect, but it goes into not prioritizing myself over others. Yeah, I guess, it's more of a time thing. You could try setting some sort of time blocks. Like this, to me, I mean, this is not a great analogy, and I realize this, but, like, this could be for somebody too who's like, I watch too much TV, and I understand, like, that could be an issue. I go home and I sit on my butt and I watch 6 hours of TV a night. So maybe you set some sort of thing, like if you're dating somebody new, you're only going to spend, like 3 nights a week out with them. Again, I'm totally just making up numbers, but you set yourself some boundaries, and then you stick to it, and you do your very best to do that, and over time you get better about that. So that, and you could even explain it to them. And I mean, I think most people would respect that, especially if it comes from a place of, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z to make my life better, and to make, whatever happen, and then somebody who has a problem with that, I think you might want to second guess why you're hanging out with them. So, cool. So, yeah, man, I think that really works. So I think that's a good idea. Again, it's tough. I know it's so easy to say, like, oh yeah, I met someone awesome, I'm just going to see them 3 days a week. That's not what I did with my fiance, and, I'm not sure I could do it, but I think it's important to, even if you can't, do it right away, to try to set that limit. And then, it's kind of like the aim high, so even if you don't make it all the way, you're still going to, end up in a good place. So, cool. All right. I had 2 more I'm going to touch on here briefly. What are some ways you stay focused and productive without getting burnt out? Staying focused and productive without getting burnt out. Well, my quick tip for this one because again, this is something I do, is I take breaks. Like, it's part of setting those limits and staying focused. So, like, I'll really go all out, but then I'll set a timer. For myself, it's 30 minutes, and I'm thinking about extending that to 45 or 60. But I'm also thinking about how I can, balance that, because you want to have enough time that you can really get some good things done. But for me, I want to stand up, and it's about clearing my head and then kind of being healthy. Right? I don't want to sit here for 4 hours. That's not good. So trying to balance that. So I would say try to set a timer, and then find something else to do. Like, I don't know, go shoot a basketball, go do the laundry. If you're at work, go walk around the building, get some water. I find that really helps. Just some sort of movement is generally a good idea, and it just something that isn't, don't go from one type of work to another. You're just task switching at that point. Take 5 minutes and kind of clear your head. Let's see. And last question today was, how do you stay organized when running a business? So these videos may not be the best example, as I'm like, there's stuff all over. But staying organized when running a business, for me, the most important part of this has been staying up to date. And that means that encompasses a whole lot. Okay, processes and procedures are paramount. But then trying your best, again, to keep those up to date and staying on top of those, creating new ones, reviewing them, things like that. Again, it's generally not about 100%, all right? It's that 80-20 rule. You do the very best you can, and because you're trying to do that, things are generally going to get better. If you're too busy, you hire somebody, okay? You get an outsourcer, you get a VA, you get an assistant, or you get a full-time employee. And then you've got to be in charge of that. So again, it's tough. If you're running the business, though, you're running the business. You are responsible for it. So I would say check out a book like Work the System by Sam Carpenter about process and how important that is and how life-changing that can be. And so that's a little bit more on the side of getting processes together and how important they can be, and he does go into his details on how he does it. And then as far as staying organized with that, I would say it's got to be regular. You just, keep doing it. So, little general, if there's specific questions on that, that's a really good one to dive into. But again, I guess the one-word summary there is process. So, all right. That's going to wrap it up. I think that's about it for today. I'm wearing this, going to head out for a run, so this is how I stay focused and productive without getting burnt out. I get up early, I get a lot done in the morning, I try to stay pretty focused throughout the morning, and then come about 11 a.m. Out the door, and it's a beautiful day outside, so I'm going to go enjoy it. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next week.